The galaxy once thrived under the rule of the Confederacy, a grand alliance made up of hundreds of advanced species. This alliance, built on centuries of cooperation and shared progress, was the strongest force in the known universe. The Confederacy had colonies spanning light years, trading routes that connected entire star systems, and fleets that patrolled the galaxy, ensuring peace. It was an age of prosperity, where peace seemed endless and hope was abundant. But then, the Xylar Dominion arrived. No one knew where they came from. One day, they simply appeared, their fleets emerging from deep space, descending on peaceful planets with ruthless efficiency. The Xylars were unlike any enemy the Confederacy had faced. They were cold, calculating, and unstoppable. Their ships were faster, more advanced, and their weapons more powerful than anything the Confederacy had ever seen. But what made them truly terrifying was their overwhelming numbers. The Xylar Dominion was not a single empire, but a vast, interconnected force that stretched across an unimaginable expanse of space. In the beginning, the Confederacy fought back fiercely, rallying their fleets and defenses. The galaxy's greatest minds worked together to devise new strategies, to create weapons that could stand up to the Dominion. But no matter what the Confederacy did, the Xylars were always one step ahead. Their attacks came without warning, and their forces seemed endless. Planet after planet fell, each one a massacre. The people of the Confederacy, who had once lived in peace and prosperity, now found themselves facing the unthinkable, total annihilation. In just a few short years, the tide of war turned against the Confederacy. The great fleets, once symbols of strength, were obliterated. Cities were reduced to rubble. Entire species were wiped out, their homes turned into ghost worlds. The once mighty alliance now had only a handful of strongholds left, each one desperately trying to hold back the crushing force of the Dominion. But it was only a matter of time before the last stronghold would fall. The leaders of the Confederacy met in secret, knowing that the situation was dire. There was no way to win this war. There were no more resources, no more soldiers, no more hope. The Dominion had already destroyed half of the Confederacy's core worlds, and the rest were quickly following. The best scientists and generals had all tried and failed to find a way to fight back. Some suggested surrender, but others held on to the belief that if they could just hold out long enough, help would come. But even they knew the truth. Help was a fantasy. The galaxy had no more allies to call on. Desperation set in as entire systems fell into chaos. The once proud Confederacy, which had united so many different species and cultures, now lay in ruins. The people no longer trusted their leaders. The hope they once had in their unity faded with each passing day. The Dominion's forces seemed to multiply endlessly. The terror they instilled across the galaxy was unlike anything the people had ever known. As the last defenses were drawn up, a hidden group of leaders and military commanders managed to escape to a secret world, one that had been kept safe from the prying eyes of the Xylars, a small forgotten planet that had not been touched by the war. There, they planned for the worst. They knew their chances of survival were slim. They knew that the Dominion would eventually find them. And when they did, the end would come swiftly. But even as they prepared for the inevitable, a strange thing happened. A new message arrived, broadcasted across all channels. It was faint, weak, but unmistakable. A signal from a distant world, one that hadn't been in contact with the rest of the galaxy for thousands of years. It was a distress signal, a cry for help. And it came from Earth. The message was simple. Humanity survives. We are ready to fight. For a moment, there was silence. The leaders of the Confederacy stared at each other, unsure if they were hearing correctly. Earth. That was a world thought lost, a place forgotten by most. How could humanity have survived after all these years? But in that moment of uncertainty, something stirred within them. Could this be the glimmer of hope they so desperately needed? Or was it just another illusion? Time was running out. The Dominion was closing in on their final stronghold. The message from Earth was their last chance, a chance to see if the human race could truly be the salvation the galaxy so desperately needed. Despite the odds, they decided to send a team to investigate. And so, in the midst of a dying galaxy, the survivors of the Confederacy placed their last hope in humanity. They would journey to Earth, to a planet thought lost, in search of the only force capable of stopping the Dominion. But what they didn't know was that the humans were waiting, and when they answered the call, they would show the galaxy the true strength of the human spirit. The planet was hidden from the galaxy, a secret kept even from the Xylar Dominion. It was not a large world, but its people had long ago chosen isolation over conflict. The planet's surface was covered in dense forests and winding rivers, mountains that touched the clouds, and vast fields of untouched wilderness. It seemed like a peaceful place, far from the horrors of war. The survivors of the Confederacy had come here, away from the destruction, hoping to escape the grasp of the Dominion. They had found sanctuary in this remote world, the last place where they could regroup and make their final stand. But it wasn't enough. The Dominion's reach stretched far and wide, and even this quiet planet couldn't remain hidden forever. The leaders of the Confederacy, now reduced to a small council of warlords and generals, knew that time was running out. They had no more resources, no more troops, no more weapons to fight back. The Dominion's forces were vast, and they had already destroyed half of the Confederacy's worlds. Now it was only a matter of time before they found this one, the last haven of hope. The people who had once believed in victory now lived in constant fear. There were only whispers now of a way out, of a hope that hadn't completely faded. Some of the survivors clung to the belief that if they could just hold out a little longer, reinforcements might come. But that was a fantasy. Even the most optimistic commanders knew that they were on their own. The leaders gathered in a high, secure building on the edge of a great city. It was here that the final decisions would be made. The building was large and imposing, with thick walls made of stone and metal, designed to withstand any attack. The war had taken its toll, and now only a few hundred people remained, living in the shadows of their former glory. Most of the planets they had once governed were now in ruins, their cities burned to the ground. But there was still a flicker of hope, and it came in the form of a signal. The message from Earth had arrived, weak but unmistakable. It was an unexpected plea, one that seemed to defy logic. How could humanity, a species once thought lost, be asking for help? It didn't make sense, but there was something in the message, something that tugged at the hearts of the leaders. They had heard stories of Earth, a distant, almost mythical world. No one had known much about it, except that it had once been home to a mighty civilization. The Confederacy's records had long been lost, and humanity was a forgotten chapter in the history of the galaxy. But now, against all odds, Earth had sent a message. Humanity survives. We are ready to fight. The words echoed through the council chamber, each one carrying a weight that the survivors couldn't ignore. The possibility that Earth had somehow survived, that humanity had found a way to endure after all these years, was a shock. It was a beacon of hope in a galaxy that had lost its way. There was a silence as the leaders of the Confederacy exchanged looks. Some were skeptical. Others, though, saw the potential. Could it be true? Could humanity still be out there, ready to fight back against the Dominion? It was a long shot, but it was their only chance. The decision was made. They would send a small group of their best soldiers and scientists to Earth. It wasn't an easy choice. They had no way of knowing what kind of civilization Earth had become, or even if the message was genuine. But there was nothing left to lose. The Dominion was closing in on them, and they had no other options. The journey would be long and dangerous, but the survivors had no other choice. They prepared their ships, old and battered, with the few remaining resources they had. The crew that volunteered for the mission knew the risks. There was a chance that they would never return, that the Dominion would find them before they could even reach Earth. But if humanity had truly survived, if they had found a way to fight back, then this was their last hope. As the ships prepared to depart, The people of the hidden world gathered to say their goodbyes. The planet had become a symbol of their last refuge, a place where they could, for just a little while, forget the horrors of war. But now, even this sanctuary would soon be lost. The Dominion was relentless, and the survivors knew it was only a matter of time before their world would fall as well. With a heavy heart, the crew set off into the unknown. The vastness of space lay before them, and the future was uncertain. They didn't know what awaited them on Earth, or if humanity would truly answer the call. But they had to try. For the last time, they put their faith in the unknown. And as they sailed through the darkness of space, the message from Earth burned bright in their minds. It was their last chance. If humanity could survive, then maybe, just maybe, the galaxy could survive too. The journey to Earth was slow and uncertain. The ship carrying the survivors of the Confederacy's last council glided through space, its engines humming with the faintest promise of hope. The vastness of the galaxy stretched out before them, endless and silent. For the crew, the journey felt like an eternity. They had no idea what Earth had become, or even if it had survived the centuries since the fall of the Confederacy. But they had to try. The message they had received was faint, almost too weak to reach them at all. It had been sent from Earth, but there was little to guide them. They only knew that Earth was far, far away, and that the galaxy was a different place than it had been when the Confederacy had first made contact with humanity. After all, no one had heard from Earth in thousands of years. The galaxy had moved on, and Earth had faded into the forgotten past. Yet, despite the long silence, the survivors dared to hope. The message was simple. Humanity survives. We are ready to fight. It was enough to keep their spirits high, even though every passing day brought them closer to the unknown. As they traveled, the crew gathered in the ship's command center, discussing the possibilities of what they might find. They knew little of Earth's current state. There had been legends, stories told by the oldest members of the Confederacy, of a great human civilization that had once thrived. But those tales were little more than myth. No one had truly known what happened to Earth after the Dominion's rise, and the few records that remained were fragmented at best. The crew had no idea what awaited them. The only thing they could be sure of was that they were running out of time. The Dominion's fleets were already sweeping through the galaxy, taking world after world. It was only a matter of time before the Confederacy's last stronghold was found and destroyed. This mission, this faint hope, was all they had left. If humanity had truly survived, then perhaps they could turn the tide of the war. But if they were wrong, if Earth had fallen or was not what the message had promised, then the last hope for the galaxy would die with them. After weeks of travel, the ship finally arrived at the outer edges of Earth's solar system. They had crossed countless light years, traversing dark stretches of space. The crew watched from the observation deck, the bright blue-green planet coming into view, slowly filling the viewports. Earth, their destination. But as they got closer, something didn't seem right. The sensors aboard the ship had been tracking the planet's surface, looking for signs of life, of civilization. Instead, what they saw was a planet that seemed almost primitive. There were no signs of large-scale cities or sprawling metropolises. The atmosphere was clear, but there was no sign of the advanced technology they had expected. The crew began to question everything. Could the message have been a trick? Was Earth even the same place it had been thousands of years ago? They were about to turn back when something unexpected happened. A faint signal, like a heartbeat, pulsed from the planet below. It was human technology. Excitement rippled through the crew. Earth had not been lost, as they feared. Humanity had survived, and they had indeed made contact. The question now was, what had become of them? How had they managed to thrive in a galaxy that had been ravaged by war? The answer to that was something the crew had yet to discover. As the ship descended into Earth's atmosphere, the crew was on high alert. They had no idea what kind of world they would land on. Were the humans they had been searching for the same as the ones they remembered, or had they changed, adapted, and evolved in ways that would surprise them? No one knew. The ship touched down in a remote location, far from the known cities of the galaxy. The area seemed peaceful, almost untouched by the violence that had ravaged the rest of the galaxy. The crew disembarked, their hearts racing with anticipation. They had made it. Earth was real, and humanity had answered the call. What they found was beyond their imagination. In front of them stood humans, not like the ones they had remembered, but changed. They were stronger, faster, and more determined. They had built a society that was entirely different from what the Confederacy had known. The planet had long since left behind the need for space colonies or interstellar trade. Earth had become a place of quiet strength, a world that had learned to survive on its own. But it was also a world ready for war, its people prepared to fight and defend their home, and the galaxy against the Dominion. The survivors of the Confederacy stood in awe as the humans of Earth welcomed them. They were no longer the weak, isolated species of legend. They had become something more, something fierce and resolute. As the two groups exchanged stories and information, the humans began to share their history. They had faced their own wars, their own struggles, and like the Dominion now threatened the galaxy, so too had they faced enemies who sought to destroy them. But humanity had fought back. They had persevered. The survivors of the Confederacy realized, in that moment, that the human race had not just survived. They had flourished. They had answered the call, and they were ready to fight, side by side, to save the galaxy from the looming threat of the Xylar Dominion. And so, the journey to Earth had led them to a new beginning, one filled with hope, unity, and a shared determination to bring an end to the war that had consumed them all. The survivors from the Confederacy, though initially filled with doubt, were soon faced with an undeniable truth. Earth, the planet they had thought lost for thousands of years, was not only alive but thriving in ways they could never have imagined. The humans they encountered were no longer the fragile, distant people from their forgotten history. Earth had become a world unlike any other, one that had endured and adapted, shaped by its own trials and battles. As the survivors made their way through the vast, green landscapes, they were awestruck by the contrast between what they expected to find and the world they had arrived in. It was a land of immense beauty, with towering trees, clear rivers, and wide, open spaces. The Earth they had come to know through old records was gone, replaced by something far more resilient. There were no towering cities, no sprawling industrial centers. Instead, the humans had built their society around the idea of sustainability and strength, living in harmony with the land. The planet was peaceful, but had an edge. Something about it spoke of a people who had faced great hardship and emerged stronger for it. The first humans they met were unlike any the survivors had seen before. They were tall, fit, and radiated a quiet confidence that was both intimidating and reassuring. They wore simple clothing, crafted from the natural resources of the land, yet the materials themselves seemed far more advanced than anything the Confederacy had used. There was no need for the high-tech gadgets the Confederacy relied on, no need for artificial intelligence or sprawling infrastructure. These humans had found a way to thrive without them. The survivors were led to what could only be described as a gathering place, a large open field surrounded by structures made of natural materials, blending perfectly with the environment. In the center, a group of humans stood waiting, their eyes fixed on the new arrivals. Their leader, a woman with short, dark hair and sharp eyes, stepped forward and greeted the travelers with a calm yet determined voice. "Welcome to Earth," she said simply, her words carrying weight far beyond their simplicity. "We've been waiting for this moment." The survivors of the Confederacy, still reeling from the shock of what they had discovered, tried to comprehend what was happening. They had expected a primitive world, one still recovering from some great fall. Instead, they had found a place that was thriving, one where humanity had not only survived, but had turned their struggles into strength. The humans, it seemed, had evolved beyond what the galaxy had expected of them. Earth had become a sanctuary not only for humanity, but for the universe itself, a place that had learned to defend itself in ways that would soon prove invaluable. The humans spoke of their history, how centuries ago, Earth had been nearly destroyed by an ancient alien race, an enemy so powerful that even the combined forces of Earth's best military could not stop them. But the humans had not surrendered. They fought back with everything they had, developing new technologies, forging new alliances, and pushing the limits of their own biology. They had used their creativity and ingenuity to build a civilization that could withstand the harshest of challenges. They had learned to bend nature to their will, crafting advanced technologies from the resources of their planet itself, and they had learned how to fight. The survivors from the Confederacy listened in awe as the humans explained their rise from the ashes. Their ancestors had faced enemies far worse than the Dominion, had battled on the brink of extinction, and emerged victorious. Earth had gone through its own dark times, but the humans had never given up. The lessons they had learned were now their greatest strength. As the conversation continued, the humans revealed more about the military they had built over the centuries. It was a force unlike anything the Confederacy had ever seen. They had learned to use advanced bioengineering to enhance their soldiers, creating warriors who were not only physically stronger but mentally sharper. These soldiers were trained not just for combat, but for survival. They were warriors in the truest sense, not just because of their weapons, but because of their will to fight and protect their world. Every soldier was also a strategist, able to think on their feet and adapt to any situation. The Confederacy survivors could hardly believe what they were hearing. A human military force capable of taking on the Dominion was more than they could have hoped for. The Xylar Dominion, with their overwhelming numbers and superior technology, had crushed everything in their path. But these humans, with their small numbers and deep knowledge of survival, had found a way to fight back. And the best part, the humans were eager to join the fight. They had been waiting for the day when the galaxy would need them again. Earth, once considered a backwater planet, was now a rising force in the universe, and its people were ready to stand alongside the survivors of the Confederacy to take on the Dominion. The human leader, seeing the determination in the eyes of the Confederacy survivors, spoke again. "We are ready to fight. We will help you take back what you've lost. But we will not just fight for you. We will fight for the galaxy, for everyone who still believes in hope." The survivors of the Confederacy, their spirits lifted by this unexpected turn of events, knew that they had found something they had long since given up on: a true ally. Earth, a world once thought lost, had now become the beacon of hope that would unite the galaxy against the coming storm. Together, humanity and the Confederacy survivors began to plan their next steps, knowing that the battle ahead would be unlike anything they had ever faced before. But they also knew that with humanity's help, they stood a chance of defeating the Xylar Dominion and restoring peace to the galaxy. With the survivors of the Confederacy now standing side by side with the people of Earth, the weight of the coming war began to settle heavily on everyone. The galaxy was on the brink of collapse, the Xylar Dominion pressing ever forward. And now, the last hope for survival rested on the shoulders of two forces: the humans of Earth and the remnants of the Confederacy. But even with this newfound alliance, the road ahead was uncertain. Every step they took would need to be calculated, every decision critical. The battle for the galaxy was about to begin, and time was running out. The humans of Earth, with their advanced knowledge of bioengineering and warfare, took charge of organizing the forces. The Confederacy survivors, although weakened by years of retreat and loss, brought valuable experience in the art of war and strategy. Together, they formed a coalition unlike any the galaxy had ever seen. There was no longer a question of whether they could defeat the Xylar Dominion. The question was how to do it, and how to survive long enough to make it happen. The first task was to strengthen their defenses. Earth's cities, built for resilience, were now becoming the central hubs for their military operations. The once quiet fields and forests were transformed into military training grounds, where both human soldiers and Confederacy veterans began rigorous preparation. Earth's forces, though vastly different from the galactic military the Confederacy was used to, were quick to adapt. The humans had perfected their fighting techniques through centuries of self-reliance, and now they were eager to share their methods with their new allies. The humans taught the Confederacy survivors how to fight using the natural resources of the land, how to craft weapons from materials that many thought were too primitive for advanced warfare. It was an approach born from necessity. On Earth, there had been no endless supply of resources or manufactured weapons. Survival had meant using everything at their disposal. The Confederacy had relied on high-tech weaponry, lasers, and advanced ships, but the humans had learned how to fight with what nature had given them, making their enemies underestimate them and giving them the advantage. Meanwhile, the Confederacy survivors shared their knowledge of interstellar strategy, their knowledge of the Dominion's tactics, and the information they had collected over years of conflict. Earth's leaders, hungry for any advantage in the coming war, absorbed everything they could. They learned about the Xylars' overwhelming numbers, their ability to adapt quickly to new technology, and their ruthlessness. The humans of Earth, however, had something the Dominion had not anticipated: a deep-rooted sense of unity and an unshakable will to protect their world and those they cared for. The training was intense. The soldiers, whether human or from the Confederacy, pushed themselves beyond their limits. Earth's bioengineered soldiers were already at peak physical condition, but they learned new ways of thinking, ways of adapting to fight a technologically superior enemy. They practiced tactics that would allow them to take on the Dominion's advanced fleets, knowing that they would not have the same firepower, but would rely on cunning and strategy instead. The humans taught the Confederacy survivors how to use their environment to their advantage, how to create traps and distractions that would confound the Dominion. They built new weapons from natural resources, using Earth's unique materials to create armor and ammunition that could resist the Dominion's most powerful weaponry. For the Confederacy survivors, it was a humbling experience to realize that they had overlooked these simple yet effective tactics for so long. For the Confederacy's leaders, watching humanity's progress was a revelation. They had been living in a galaxy at war for so long that they had forgotten the strength that came from unity and resourcefulness. The humans, with their smaller numbers and less advanced technology, had found a way to survive in a universe that had chewed up and spit out many of the greatest civilizations. They had learned how to be patient, how to fight not with brute strength, but with intelligence and resilience. As the training continued, a new plan began to take shape. The survivors knew that if they were to have any chance at victory, they would need to strike at the heart of the Dominion. That Tylers had conquered so many worlds because they were quick and decisive, but the humans and Confederacy survivors realized that the Dominion's greatest strength, its size and numbers, could also be its greatest weakness. That Tylers couldn't cover every planet in their vast empire, and their supply lines were stretched thin. If the Allied forces could hit fast, hard, and unexpectedly, they might just be able to turn the tide of the war. A daring plan was set in motion to strike at one of the Dominion's largest supply depots. The mission was risky, but it was their best chance to disrupt the Dominion's operations and show the galaxy that they were capable of fighting back. A team of Confederacy veterans and Earth's best soldiers was assembled, ready to undertake the most dangerous mission of their lives. As the days passed, Earth's warriors and the Confederacy's survivors came together not just as allies, but as a family. They had found common ground, not just in their desire to defeat the Xylar Dominion, but in their shared strength and resilience. Every battle fought, every new strategy developed, brought them closer to their ultimate goal. The survivors, who had once believed that their fate was sealed, now stood tall, ready for the fight ahead. They had found new hope in the strength of humanity, and humanity had found hope in the wisdom of the Confederacy. Together, they were no longer just survivors of a dying galaxy. They were a force to be reckoned with. And when the time came to launch their first major strike against the Dominion, they would do so not as separate forces, but as one unified army, stronger than ever before. The day had come. After weeks of intense preparation, strategy sessions, and training, the alliance between the survivors of the Confederacy and the humans of Earth was finally ready to launch their first coordinated strike against the Scylar Dominion. This was their moment, an opportunity to show that they would not stand by while the galaxy was consumed by the Dominion's expansion. Earth's forces, with their knowledge of the terrain and their bioengineering enhancements, and the Confederacy's tactical brilliance, would take on one of the Dominion's largest supply depots, a crucial resource hub that kept their war machines running. The mood on Earth was tense, a mix of determination and quiet confidence. Both sides knew the risks. This attack was a bold one, aiming to disrupt the Dominion's resources and send a clear message. Humanity, in partnership with the Confederacy, was no longer just surviving. They were fighting back. The Dominion, once a seemingly unstoppable force, would learn that they were not invincible. The operation was called Echo Strike, and its goal was simple: hit fast, hit hard, and leave no trace. The Dominion's supply depots were massive, and while their security was tight, it was not invulnerable. The strike team would move quickly, using Earth's advanced technology and Confederacy tactics to infiltrate the facility, disable the defenses, and destroy its critical systems. Time was of the essence. Every minute they spent on the mission would be a minute the Dominion could use to retaliate. The team assembled, a mixture of humans and Confederacy veterans, each ready to play their part in the dangerous mission ahead. Captain Lara Vance, the leader of the Earth forces, stood at the front. Her face was calm, though her heart raced with anticipation. She had led her people through many battles. But this was different. This was the first major strike in a war that would define the fate of the galaxy. Beside her stood Commander Tarek Solis, a seasoned officer from the Confederacy, his expression one of focus. He had fought in countless battles, but even he couldn't shake the weight of what was about to happen. This strike would send ripples across the galaxy. Lara looked around at the team of soldiers gathered before her. There were many different backgrounds here, but they shared one thing in common: a deep desire to protect their homes and stop the Dominion's endless conquest. She knew this was more than just a mission. It was a statement to the galaxy that they were not powerless. "Remember," she said, her voice steady and firm, "we strike fast. We hit them hard and disappear into the shadows before they even know what hit them. This is not just about winning a battle. It's about showing that we can fight back, no matter the odds." The team nodded, understanding the weight of their task. The plan was set. They would infiltrate the Dominion's supply depot from the ground, using a network of underground tunnels that Earth's reconnaissance teams had discovered. These tunnels were old, but they provided a clear path to the heart of the facility, bypassing most of the Dominion's surface defenses. The team would use their advanced technology to disable the outer perimeter sensors and make their way in without being detected. As the team moved toward the depot, they could feel the anticipation building. Each step brought them closer to the unknown, but they knew they had no choice. The Dominion had to be stopped. The Scylar forces had taken enough from the galaxy, and the people of Earth and the Confederacy had finally found their strength in unity. It was time to fight back. The atmosphere inside the tunnels was thick with tension, every soldier aware of the dangers lurking in the shadows. Earth's bioenhanced soldiers led the way, their heightened senses allowing them to detect any movement or sound that could indicate the presence of enemy forces. The Confederacy veterans, with their years of combat experience, kept an eye on their surroundings, ready for anything. When they finally reached the heart of the Dominion's depot, the team split up to plant explosives on key structures, fuel supplies, communication systems, and storage units that housed the Dominion's weaponry. Every move had to be precise. If they were detected too early, the entire operation could fail. They worked quickly, their hands steady as they set the charges that would cripple the Dominion's ability to wage war on nearby systems. As the final explosives were set, Captain Lara Vance gave the signal. The team retreated quickly, making their way back through the tunnels, moving with a grace and speed that was a testament to the training they had endured. They were ghosts in the dark, slipping past security measures and avoiding detection at every turn. The sound of their footsteps echoed in the distance, a constant reminder that time was running out. They reached the extraction point just as the countdown began. With only seconds to spare, they boarded their ship and took off, racing back into the sky, leaving the Dominion supply depot behind. The explosion came moments later, a massive fiery burst that lit up the night sky, sending shockwaves through the atmosphere. The team watched from the safety of their ship, the fireball rising into the sky like a beacon of hope. The mission had been a success. Back on Earth, the Alliance celebrated their victory. It was a small win in the grand scheme of the war, but it was a victory nonetheless. For the first time in years, the galaxy had seen a glimmer of hope. The Dominion's stranglehold on the galaxy was not as secure as they had thought, and humanity, with the support of the Confederacy, had proven that they could strike back and make a difference. But the war was far from over. The Dominion would retaliate, and there would be more battles to fight. Yet, as the survivors stood together, their hearts filled with renewed determination. They had faced the darkness and emerged stronger. The first strike was just the beginning. With the full force of their alliance, they would continue to fight, one battle at a time, until the galaxy was free once more. The explosion that had rocked the Dominion's supply depot sent shockwaves throughout the galaxy. It was a symbol of the unexpected power of humanity and the Confederacy. Their first strike had been a success, and it was not just a tactical victory. It was a victory of hope. For the first time in a long time, the galaxy had seen that the Dominion, once thought invincible, was not unbeatable. But despite the success, the war was far from over. The Dominion would not be content with a single defeat. They would retaliate. And the humans and Confederacy survivors knew that they needed to keep pushing forward, each victory building upon the last, until the final battle was fought. Back on Earth, the Alliance regrouped. The soldiers were tired, but their spirits were higher than ever. They had proven that they could strike at the heart of the Dominion and live to tell the tale. But there was no time to rest. The Dominion would come for them, and they had to be ready. The leadership of Earth and the Confederacy gathered in a secure meeting room, a place where no ears could listen. Captain Lara Vance and Commander Tarek Solis stood at the front, alongside Earth's top strategists and Confederacy officers. The mood was serious, but there was a new sense of unity in the air. "We've done it," Lara said, her voice strong and clear. "The Dominion knows we are a force to be reckoned with now, but we need to take this a step further. One victory is not enough. We need to cripple their forces, to strike at their leadership, and break their grip on the galaxy once and for all." The room fell silent as the leaders processed her words. The Dominion's leadership was ruthless and well protected. A direct assault would be dangerous, but if they could somehow get past the Dominion's defenses, they might have a chance to take down the command structure that held the entire empire together. Commander Solis spoke up, his voice calm but filled with purpose. "We know their tactics. We've seen their patterns. If we can create a diversion, draw their fleets away from their strongholds, we might be able to strike at their heart." The plan was risky, but it was their best shot. They would need to divide their forces into two main groups. One would launch a large-scale attack to distract the Dominion, while the other would target the Dominion's central command and leadership. If they succeeded, the Dominion's hold on the galaxy would be broken. If they failed, it could mean the end of everything they had fought for. The leaders of the Alliance worked tirelessly, crafting a strategy that would allow them to carry out this bold plan. The humans of Earth, with their ingenuity and resourcefulness, and the Confederacy survivors, with their deep knowledge of battle and strategy, had built a united front that was ready for anything. They had been through too much to turn back now. The day of the final push arrived. The Allied forces mobilized. Every soldier, whether human or from the Confederacy, knew what was at stake. This would be their most dangerous mission yet. They boarded their ships and prepared to launch a two-pronged attack on the Dominion's empire. The first group would engage the Dominion's fleets, creating enough of a distraction to draw their attention away from the command center. The second group, a smaller but highly skilled team, would infiltrate the Dominion's stronghold and eliminate their leadership. As the forces of Earth and the Confederacy approached the Dominion's fleets, tension filled the air. The Dominion's ships were massive, their firepower immense, but the Alliance was not intimidated. They had faced down the odds before, and they would do it again. The first group of ships moved into position, engaging the Dominion's forces in a fierce battle. In the midst of the chaos, the second group of soldiers, led by Captain Lyra Vance herself, made their move. They slipped past the Dominion's defenses, their ships moving in under the cover of the battle. The Dominion was focused on the distraction, not realizing that the true target was right under their noses. The journey into the heart of the Dominion's stronghold was perilous. The team had to navigate through layers of security, bypassing countless traps and checkpoints. Every step was a risk, but they pressed on, driven by the knowledge that they were the last hope for the galaxy. Every soldier knew that if they failed, the consequences would be devastating. Finally, they reached the Dominion's central command center. It was heavily guarded, but the team had trained for this moment. They stormed the building, taking down guards with swift precision, and moved toward the heart of the enemy's operations. At the core of the command center stood the leaders of the Dominion, ruthless, calculating, and powerful. Captain Lyra Vance and her team launched their final assault, eliminating the Dominion leaders with skill and determination. It was a brutal fight, but it was one they could not afford to lose. With each strike, the future of the galaxy was decided. And in the end, the Dominion's leadership was defeated. Outside, the battle was still raging. The first group had successfully drawn the Dominion's fleets away, and now the final blow had been struck. The remaining Dominion forces were leaderless and disorganized. The Alliance's forces quickly swept in, dismantling what was left of the Dominion's empire. When the smoke cleared, the galaxy was free. The survivors of the Confederacy and the humans of Earth stood victorious, side by side. They had faced the darkness together and emerged stronger than ever before. They had not only defeated the Dominion, they had restored hope to the galaxy. As they looked out across the vast expanse of space, they knew that this victory would be remembered for generations to come. The war was over, and peace had returned to the galaxy. But for the first time in a long while, they knew that they had the strength to protect it, together. And as the stars shone brightly above, humanity and the Confederacy knew that their fight had been worth it. The galaxy was free, and they had ensured that the darkness would never return.